Hello and welcome to the complete new player's guide for Star Citizen. So today's main topic is gonna be mining with your ships, so with a mole or a prospector. What are the best spots to mine or refine? Which components and consumables do you need? And which ores should you mine? So even if you're not new to the game, you could still learn a thing or two, so stay tuned. If you're thinking about buying Star Citizen right now, you can use my referral code and it's gonna be down in the info section of the video. If you use it, you can get a slight boost with your starting money, and you should consider subscribing because I'm posting pretty much daily. And since I'm a music producer and a composer and whatnot, I'm gonna be posting a lot of original music and original content inspired by Star Citizen. All that said, my name is Grumpy Eye, and let's start with the tutorial video. So I've heard that you like money. Well, don't we all? Well, I guess you're in the right spot, cause mining can get you a lot of money really fast. Now, you all probably know that already. And you probably rented a prospector. And you probably think that it sucks. And I presume that all of your friends and people on the servers told you that it sucks. Solely because on the rental ships you cannot switch out the components. And yeah, it does suck. You can actually mine some Baxalite, but that's it. And I mean, that's not really the money that you were hoping to get from mining with a big ass ship. And I would completely concur. But if you bought the prospector with your in-game money or real money, and you are thinking about investing a lot of time in mining, then I pity you because you probably should have just saved up a bit more and bought the mole. But here you are, let's do this. First thing that you really need to know is the difference between the mining heads. The only mining heads that are worth mentioning are the Helix mining head and the Lancet. You probably want to go for the Helix because the Helix is a lot more expensive, but don't. If you're running a single prospector operation, you should go for the Lancet solely because the Lancet mining head will give you a bigger optimal window when you're trying to break rock, and it will lower the instability and the resistance by 75%. Now, the biggest downside of the Lancet is the power transfer. It is not the best, but I mean, it's not the end of the world neither. That said, Helix comes into play when you're not mining alone. So when you have a friend that has a Lancet on his ship, or if you're in a mole with a friend and he's rocking the Lancet as the supporting laser. But if you're solo mining, and presumably you are because you don't have any friends, neither do I, because I hate people, you should probably go with a Lancet. Both the Helix and the Lancet mining heads can be purchased at the refinery deck on Crew L1. After you got your mining head, you should figure out where to go now. If you want to mine Quantanium, which I suppose you do because it's the most profitable ore, you can do that at Crew L3, Arc L3 and Her L3. So all the L3 Lagrange points are a good starting point to mine Quantanium. But you're only gonna get average-sized rocks, and there's gonna be a lot of inert materials when you try to extract the Quantanium. So if you're going for the Quantanium on Crew L3, Her L3 or Arc L3, and if you don't want to clog up your prospector with inert materials, you should go only for the rocks that have more than 30% Quantanium in them. If you go any lower, you're just gonna clog up the prospector and you're gonna get like 15 SUs of Quantanium, which is just not enough because it's gonna sell for around 125k AUC. So, I mean, you could have just done one of the group ERT missions and it's pretty much the same amount, so yeah, just don't do it. Now, the next good spot for mining Quantanium, as you probably heard, is the Aaron's Halo. It's an asteroid belt that is surrounding the Stanton system. It is not on the map, it's pretty hard to get to it, but when you know how to, it's easy, but to be honest, there's not a lot of Quantanium over there right now, so I would just skip it if I were you. Now, the actual best mining spots for mining Quantanium are the moons. But there's the thing that you should know about Quantanium. It is found in the most cold places. The colder it is, the more Quantanium you will find. So the best moves for mining Quantanium are Lyria on ArcCorp, Walla on ArcCorp, Clio and Euterpa on Microtech, and the Belt of Yella on Crusader. Now, most people do not recommend Walla, but here's a video of my friend from earlier today that just got the 600i, and he's talking about Walla and why he likes it. So I probably shouldn't suggest or tell people to come here.
Yeah, I would just have it for the video, but maybe just recommend Lyria because everyone knows Lyria. Like,
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world either way, honestly. And it's nice to, like...
I still do have like 30 subscribers, so it's not really that big of a crowd that's watching. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice for your subscribers to get something different, something that isn't just like what they've heard from other people. So if you want to, I've got no problem with it. A lot of people don't know about Walla, or they don't recommend Walla insofar that the ore index isn't as high as Lyria, right? So on paper it doesn't look as good. But the way that visual scanning works, because of how you can just go up and it's like, oh, bright blue, don't even bother stopping, saves you so much time. And the way that the rocks are so jagged, they always break into purple rocks, and that saves you a lot of time as well. So like, and I found pretty good rocks there. My best find ever was my first ever rock on Walla, which is why I fell in love with it.
So now, if you are a good person, you should type "Thank you, Corbin" in the comment section below. Also, you should obviously subscribe, but yeah, whatever. I guess you're not a good person then. Anyway, what he's referring to as breaking into purple rocks, when you break the rock, it's gonna break into smaller rocks, and they could have a yellow outline or a purple outline. When there's a yellow outline, that rock needs to be cracked once more so it can become purple. When there's a purple outline, you can consume or extract the whole rock immediately. So in translation, what he's saying is that once you've made the initial crack on the rock, they break up into smaller pieces that are purple. So you can pretty much extract them straight away, which can of course save you a lot of valuable time. Now, you may ask yourself, why are the moons so much better than the Lagrange stations around the Stanton system? Well, here's why. On the asteroid fields around the Lagrange stations, you can get medium-sized rocks. While on the moons, you can get big-ass fucking rocks that are like 9 tons each. There's a big difference. Now, the 9-ton rocks are really hard to mine. You either do it with a mole and a bunch of friends with you, or you do it with a prospector or a mole, whatever, but you need consumables for that. So now we are at the point of the video where we talk about consumables. It's gonna be boring as fuck. That said, I mean, you really need to know this shit, so just bear with me. So the consumables can be bought at pretty much any of the L1 Lagrange points, as far as I know, but I mostly just shop on Crew L1, so that's the safest bet. Except the Surge module, you buy it on Port Olisar for some fucking reason. So, I mean, you need it for mining on moons, so yeah, just hop to Olisar and buy like 50 of those. By the way, there's a slight difference between passive and active mining consumables. The active ones you need to activate by yourself, and you do this by holding Alt and pressing 1, 2, or 3 on your keyboard. And the passive ones are just there, and there's like a filter module that's pretty good, but it's too expensive, and it just stays there and filters out the inert materials. But that said, I mean, it's just too fucking expensive, and if you get like 30k or the game crashes or something like that happens, you're just gonna lose it. So just don't fucking buy it. Now, with all that said, let's talk about my preferred modules or consumables, which are the Stampede module, Surge module, Optimum module, Lifeline module, and the Rhyme module maybe, but I mean, whatever, you don't really need it. So there's a big difference on what they do. So the Lifeline module, for example, if you overcharge the rock, while you're mining, and you overcharge it and it goes into the red zone, and it's about to, I mean, it's gonna explode at some point. You activate the lifeline module, and it lowers the shatter damage if it explodes. It lowers the shatter damage by 90%. It lowers the overcharge rate by 90% also, so it's gonna save you from the rock that's gonna explode eventually. So that's why it's called Lifeline. The next on the list is the Surge module. It works instantly, and it pushes the overcharge rate by 100%. So it pretty much makes a big boom, and the rock charges like 50% more. And actually you need to know what you're doing, because it adds like 200% to shadow damage, so if the rock explodes, you're gonna be dead. And you should use this when you're mining bigger rocks, the ones that you probably don't know that you can actually mine. Yes, you can. So let's say, for example, there's a 8-ton rock, and you're trying to mine it, and the charge rate is not moving. You pop the Surge module once, and it's gonna go like halfway up. But of course, your mining laser is not gonna sustain that much power, and the charge is gonna drop. What you should do when it drops to like 25%, just to get to the optimal charge again, you should pop the Surge module once again. So you're gonna get back up to the optimum range. However, you will not be able to stay in the optimal range for that long, so you can crack the rock. That's when the Stampede module comes into play. You use it as soon as you hit the optimum range, and it's gonna fill up the green bar on your screen much faster, so you'll be able to crack the rock even though you probably thought that you couldn't and that you needed another player to do it. But no, you can. You just need to use the Surge module twice to get to the optimal range, and once you're there, you just pop the Stampede module and you just look at the green bar rising, because the rock is gonna mine itself pretty much. Now the optimum module, 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 the optimum. Alright, I'm gonna stop. So, as I've said, the optimum module has the optimal charge window raised by 75%. So, your green area is actually bigger. You should use this with your Helix mining head, or maybe if the Stampede module doesn't really cut it and you still need like a few more millimeters of the green bar that you need to fill up. So I use it for that on my Lancet, but I mean, you can figure it out. Now the Rhyme module is pretty much like the Lifeline module, but it only drops the charge rate by 50%. And it works instantly. And there are a few more modules, but I'm not sure if you really need them, so I'm not gonna talk about them. I mean, there's the brand module and stuff like that, but yeah, whatever. The big modules that you could get, I mean, the passive ones that are really expensive, the FLTR module or the filter module is pretty much the only one that is worth mentioning and that stands out. It reduces the intake of inert materials by 15% or 10% if you buy the cheaper one, but it's stackable, so if you're running a mole, you might be tempted to put like 3 of those on one of the mining lasers. But I mean, you can, but if the game crashes or you 30k, you're gonna lose it, and the only way to retrieve it is to reset your character, as far as I know, so just don't do it. It's not worth it. Right, so the next thing we should talk about is the refining process. You can refine everything you mined on all of the L1 Lagrange stations. So that's Mike L1, Crew L1, Arc L1, and Her L1. But Crew L1's refinery is actually the only one that gives you a 3% boost to your yield when you're refining Quantanium. It's not much, but it's welcome, I guess. When you get to the refinery, you can sell your goods, or you can sell your unrefined ores straight to the refinery, and it's gonna give you half of the money you can actually earn. or you can refine it and you can double the money. It's your choice. But if you do that, which I strongly suggest, you will need another ship to haul all of the refined ores back to Area 18 on ArcCorp or a new Babbage on Microtech to sell the goods, which could be a pain in the ass if you get pirated or the game 30Ks or your ship just glitches out and explodes. So, I mean, yeah, you should do it, but just do it on a empty server, I guess. Now, there's a big difference between the processes that are used to refine your ores, and the gist of it is that pretty much they're either low cost and low yield or slow, or they are high cost, high yield, and really fast, and like all the things in between. So I mostly use Dink's soul rotation or parametric chromolysis or whatever it's called, or the Ferron exchange, but it really depends on how long I want to wait for the thing to finish and how much I want to pay for it, so it's pretty much up to you. So the difference between the moderate yield and the high yield is not really that big. The high yield gives you like 95% of yield, and the moderate yield gives you like 85-ish%, something like that. And it's not that big of a difference. I mean, you just choose like whatever you want to, because it depends on how long you want to wait for it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So just to finish this off, I'm gonna give you a few tips and tricks. When you're mining alone and you ping and you see that there is a signature like 14 kilometers away, that is not a rock. That is a player. Just fucking run. First check it out, maybe he's just a miner, but he's probably already locked onto you and he knows you're there, and you should just leg it. The second tip is that once in a while you're gonna run into a really good cluster of rocks, and there's gonna be a few rocks there that you cannot mine by yourself because you're already full. So what you should do is every time before you go mining, you go and take a delivery mission with your prospector or the mole, whatever. And in that way, that box that you just took is gonna be visible to you and only to you across the whole system. So if there is a rock that you cannot mine, you can return to it because you just put the box right next to it and you can see it across the whole system. If the rock is just a bit too big for you to mine, you can actually try and overclock your mining laser. Apparently it works, so might as well just try it. The next step is pretty obvious. You need to mine first, crack all the rocks you want to crack, and then you need to collect the Quantanium, and the whole process should look like this. You mine, you crack, you scan all the rocks, you collect all of the high percentage rocks first, then you collect the lower percentage rocks, and after that, you jump away. Do not collect while you are mining. Quantanium is volatile cargo and it will explode. Once you collect 1% of it, the timer starts and you have 15 minutes to get back to the refinery. That said, the fastest way to store your ship right now, once you're on a pad, you get out of your pilot seat and you backspace. In that way, the ship is going to store and you're going to respawn inside the station. So yeah, that's pretty much all for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to bring a towel when you're traveling through space. Subscribe!